We're talking about forming relationships. We're talking about how organizations actually form relationships, types of relationships, and others. All right. Relationship forming. How do organizations form relationships? As usual, interactive. Yeah. Can somebody tell us what type of relationship? Anyway, what kind of relationship do we have in organizations? Can somebody tell us the types of relationships that we have in organizations and how we come about them and things like that? Any idea? Yeah. Within the organization. I mean, when I say within, that is with the organization and its stakeholders. Within the, yeah.
I think sometimes there's a relationship between the supplier
And the customer. Okay, so supplier-customer relationship. But again, let's kind of expand it a little bit. You know, yeah, we know that there's a relationship between the supplier and the customer. But then again, we can actually kind of decentralize it. You get my point, what I mean by decentralized. That is digging down to the micro levels and things. Interpersonal relationships. You know, so the customer, the fact that customer has been dealing with the company, you're likely to have people having that bond. You know, so interpersonal. Because after some time, you've been to the company several times, you get to know the staff name because of the badges, for example, or oh, excuse me, can I know your name? And then you keep on doing. So there's always that interpersonal relationship what developing. All right. What else? What kind of relationship? Intra. Which one?
Whereby the organization also dealing with people outside the organization who are not stakeholders.
Would that be intra? So how would we call it? Functional. So we have functional relationship between those functions, perhaps within the supply department and then the accounting department. All right. Or even within the same organization, if we go by your intra, the intra relationship does happen, but not external. As soon as you use external, it fails to become intra. It becomes external relationship. But then the intra relationship between departments, you know, because you have the marketing department dealing with maybe the account department, checking those who are bought and those who are paid up, you know, customers who are on good standing, and as a result, whether they should be forwarded some kind of credit facilities or they should be extended some credit facilities. You understand that? So it is intra-relationship, but it's functional basis. What else? What else? What other relationships?
Supply chain relationship.
The supply chain relationship, yeah. Can you explain to us?
Yeah, the organization is dealing with other organizations. The organization actually buys from other organizations.
Yeah.
So there must be some kind of relationship between those organizations in order to facilitate it.
But remember, with that supply chain, it's not only buying, it is also kind of the labor market. All right, the labor market supplies you. It supplies the business with some kind of labor force. It supplies, you know, like the institutions like Legon, for example, supplies what? What do you call it? Labor or some kind of expertise to industry. So, and these are all parts of the what? The supply chain that an organization would have. Okay, all right. Now, when you look at these sets of relationships, we're saying that institutions actually form those relationships based on certain, you know, kind of networks. All right, and that's what we're actually looking at. So, we have seller's motivational investment in relationship, and we have what? A hypothesized realm of buyer-seller relationship. So just like we have been explaining, if you look at it from this perspective, okay, you have buyer's motivational investment in the relationship. So if the buyer has this low motivation, All right, we're saying that here, this is high, low on that continent. This is high, this is low, this is low, this is high. So if you have low relationship, motivations, you realize that the exchange is no. All right, then it means that it's going to be difficult for the customer or the client to be coming back, maybe after one purchase and that's it. Because the motivation here is low. And then the hypothesized RAM, which is the buy relationship here, seller's motivational investment relationship is low. Why do you think that it will be low here, it will be low here? What are some of the factors that will contribute to having that low kind of scenario? Yeah.
Maybe the customer does not have interest in the product.
What kind of interest? Or why not having that interest?
Just to add to what I said, perhaps you buy a product and you suffer sale dissonance.
Yeah.
You are not satisfied with the performance of
That's right. Yeah.
So you definitely will not go back.
That's right. So that's the key. The value. And we say that it's about value proposition. And then once you propose value, and then the person perhaps go ahead to buy the product and then realize that that value in return is not actually fulfilled, and there's what? Post-purchase dissonance. You're not going to go back, are you? That's as simple as that. So that is why a buyer would have low investment or low motivational investment in a relationship as a result, not actually pursuing it. What about the seller's perspective? Seller attitude. Explain that to us.
Towards the client. So if it's not the client, would definitely not come back.
What would lead to that attitude?
Sometimes his own personal attitude.
Okay.
So,
But I think that would be not from a commercial perspective. Now, let me give you a scenario before you go. One of the major, companies actually invited, and it's a business-to-business relationship, actually invited their suppliers for a meeting. Now, this boss, who is responsible for, the acquisitions and things like supply relationship, actually told the suppliers that, listen, we need you guys to reduce your, prices by, let's say, 20%. And that is, he's invited almost all their suppliers. Because he's a major player in the industry, he can buy, the company buys quite a lot of scale, they buy a lot of materials. So, in a way, it looks like they're trying to bully the supply side, to sort of reduce their prices. One of them actually got up and said, we already are the leading suppliers in the country. We have the most high-tech systems or production lines. And we have already cut down our prices by 20% anyway. So we don't think that we'll abide by your kind of so-called bullying style of asking us to reduce the cost of the product. What he did say was, you can walk out. As a complete attitude, you can walk out. But he thinks that perhaps the supplier could have had a nice way of saying that we couldn't meet it, we couldn't meet your demands. So sometimes companies' attitude, their demands, and their way of approaching could actually make them have low involvement from that perspective, from that point of view. Sometimes also, because of the demands like price pressures or the pressures in the production of the goods, vis-a-vis how much you're actually preparing to pay for that, would mean that regardless of how close they are with you or how they want to develop that relationship, it will put them in a very tight financial flow, in a very tight corner in terms of profitability. As a result, they may decide not to be interested in that relationship. So if the if the seller thinks that the prices that you're offering them is not good enough, and it will actually make them suffer, kind of market what we call profitability consequences, then you're not gonna actually continue the relationship. Are you with me? Yeah. So that is that. These are some of the reasons why the the seller could actually have a low moral or motivation. It could also be as a result of technological changes. All right. If the system that you're using, or you're actually, your system is much more old school, and they have kind of an improvised or much more improved systems, clearly there's not going to be that kind of alignment. So therefore they have to move on with the kind of relationship, because it doesn't support the product. It doesn't support the services that they have. So you either have to retool in order to match up and to align with their internal processes, or call the relationship quit. You understand? Any questions?
And I also think that inferior products
That's right.
can also widen that relationship between the customer as well as the supplier.
That's right.
Because if you produce substandard materials, then definitely you will not come for repeat purchase.
That's right. That's right.
Affects the
Yeah. That's right. What else?
talking about motivation at the low side,
Yeah.
sometimes when it comes to the service, where you cannot differentiate it from the person who is providing the service. If the person is not nice to,
Excellent.
I mean, you will not, go there
Yeah.
to pay professional services.
Exactly. That's exactly the point I was coming to. When we talked about interpersonal relationship earlier on, didn't we? Imagine that bond. And institutions are people anyway. They're manned by people. And these developments, these relationships, be it functional, be it whatever, it's actually interlocked by people. So imagine that this sales guy has been so fantastic, all right? And you've always been calling him, Trump, he's there. And he's so caring, he's so kind of empathizing, all right? And he's so involved in the process. The next day you go and they say, oh, the guy is left. What happens? There's a downturn of morale, of motivations. Because for all you know, the company has actually been benefiting from that particular bond between the personnel involved. And once, who has actually left a bank or a kind of service because a staff is left? Who has?
It was not a salon, a hair salon.
A salon, right? Yeah. So your stylist had left and then you decided to switch allegiance. It happens. It happens. Sometimes, you see, and sometimes it may be, industry dependent. Maybe low level involvement, circumstances. When the exit is not that costly, maybe exiting that particular relationship is not that costly. You're likely to what? To leave because the staff is left. But when the exit is costly, it's highly involving. Maybe by leaving that relationship, some companies actually have that kind of system alignment and things. By leaving that relationship, it actually calls for a whole retool or aligning your system with another supplier's systems. It's kind of a lot of money, so you may be forced to do what? To stick to the relationship. I, for example, think that when it comes to mobile telecommunication, and maybe you can disagree with me, majority of customers in one of the telecom organizations are kind of coerced in terms of loyalty.
Yes.
Do you agree? They're kind of a coerced, loyals. Because perhaps they foresee the cost of living as much more higher. And that's why we have this kind of a portability thing. Do you know the mobile number portability? It was supposed to resolve that problem of coerced loyalty. Because those days, if you have to port, if you have to leave one network, what does it mean? Change of number. It was highly involved. Why is it? Imagine having a number for the past 15 years or 10 years, or even 5 years, or even 2 years. Almost every social network of you is connected to that number, and you decide to leave. Impact, big time. You get it? it was so much involved, emotionally, physically, and everything else, that moving from one network to the other was very difficult. All right. And if the relationship is highly involved in that manner, it is so difficult for you to do it, to apply yourself to that kind of exit. All right, because the exit cost is so high. Or it could be that the entry cost, the other side, is also high. Are you with me? So once you plug yourself into one place, that's it. You just want to be there. Like law services, for example. If you have to actually go to a lawyer for one day, you understand what it means? Consultation fees. It's big time. But if you have one particular lawyer that you've been dealing with, maybe on certain humanitarian grounds, well, not humanitarian, but because of your relationship with them, they can keep you representing in courts without necessarily taking money now, maybe giving you some credit kind of facility to pay later. If you have to kind of ditch this particular lawyer or this particular law firm to go to a new law firm, they will slap you immediately with a consultation fee. And it's big time. You get it? So the relationship, the involvement in exiting and entry could actually prevent you from what? Either exiting a particular relationship or entering into another. Is that clear? What else do you think that could be some of the impediments that would actually, force people to have that kind of relationship?
Like the supplier or this thing. If maybe that is the company buys your product, you have no other alternative. And it means that you'll be forced to Ghana selling our cocoa to Japan. When they go and they say that this is the price we are giving to you, whether the price is good or not good, to return it, you have nowhere to go. So you'll be forced to sell it at the price that the seller is offering you. So sometimes these are some of the things make a company stick to one supplier, one producer.
That's right. What else? Yes.
Maybe the profitability of the relationship.
That's right.
Because a lot of people service that market.
Yeah.
That they reduce to sell them, and then it tells people that I'm not going to pay
That's right.
this market.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I think I also think that monopoly also plays a key role.
That's right.
Also influencing this.
That's right. Yeah. Because they are the only supply. So monopoly big time. But it's also competition. How does that define it? How does that force us to be? Competition. There are certain companies that we use them as a shield. Is that true? The fact that you supply to ECG is a massive company. All right? So you use it as an endorsement. Do you want to leave that relationship? You get a point. Because the issue is that if you leave although ECG may not be paying you on time and things like that, but you think that having a clientele of that structure, all right, you would always be able to win other projects. So leaving that relationship is very hard for you because it's a massive company and you're sure of what? Having your money anyway. Again, it's a public institution, so you're definitely sure the government will pay. All right. So competition, the forces around competition can also kind of keep you in a relationship. Am I right? And then again, the pull factors. You know the pull factor, the push and pull. Who knows that? Push and pull. Now, if consumers, let's come back to the Ghana cocoa situation. The consumers think that by looking at the label, they see raw beans from Ghana. That's all they know. Would you leave the relationship with buying your cocoa seed from Ghana, no matter how, kind of unpleasant your relationship with the cocoa, the raw material producers from Ghana? You wouldn't. Because the consumer says that I will only buy from this particular source if your raw material is from Ghana, because they believe in Ghana cocoa being of quality. So if the pull factors, that is the consumers who actually buy, think that they are better off consuming chocolate made by cocoa beans from Ghana, you can't leave the relationship. It becomes difficult to leave. Because as soon as you change your raw material source, they say, oh, cocoa beans from Cameroon, Korea. they're not confident they could leave. It's the same argument that is actually making this issue about the supply sources of goods in Europe very, very predominant, because most customers, especially those who buy jewelries and things, want to know that the raw materials are not coming from blood tinted countries, like especially when you see the jewelries like diamond, and we have what is called the blood diamond and things. Majority of people are looking at what is the source of this. And if the source is a source that they think that is tainted, they don't want to buy. So companies are actually being locked up in relationship because of some of these two factors. Because you leave, you lose your customer base. Is that clear? All right. Now, here is a high. Bilateral relationship maintenance. And then buyer-maintained relationship. So we know, the reverse is the same, isn't it? The other factors will lead to no relationship. The other factors will lead to what? High relationship. Customer loyalty and integrated model. We're saying that all these relationships actually sort of foster, loyalty, or the kind of a relationship that's supposed to bind the both sides, that is the customer and the company. And that's all those things that we've said actually borders on here. Is that right? The image issue, like we said, is it from blood diamond sources? Countries that have rebels fighting and things like that. It borders on here. If the company has a source that is related to that, you have image issue, you have reputation issue, and that could actually engender, or that can actually impede on what your loyalty, with customers, or customers' loyalty with you. Quality, we've said it. Inferior. If you put in an inferior product, obviously the relationship is going to be what? Staggered, and you're going to lose that. And then price, we've talked about it. Now that leads to here. You have barriers to switching, and we talked about a mobile number portability issue that was supposed to what? Break switching. Alright, barriers to switching. I wish we could have something in banking as well. Banking is also one of the areas that is difficult for people to switch, especially in Western Europe, in European countries and elsewhere in the Western world. And now, most banks in the Western world actually have, or trying to find a way of dealing with this. Why do you think that it's difficult for people to switch banks? Can you tell me, why do you think it's difficult for bank customers to switch banks?
Sometimes, like what you said earlier, the point of entry is very high. So, for example, in Ghana here, you go to open an account and they're asking of so many things. That may take your time. One way ECG, light bill.
That's right.
ID card, and so many other things. You may be holding the money in there, but even those things, they're not allowed.
That's correct. The entry is so kind of difficult. There are some people who have never even had a PO box before, but they're supposed to put PO box address. And there are some people who have lived with their parents and things. They haven't been paying electricity bill, but they want to see electricity bill in their name, all right, before they register you. So all those things become impediment for you to move from one place. As soon as you lock yourself in one, hey, GCB will tell you you're bound for life. Yes. I called one of my friends who is actually the GCB rebranding. I said, because you couldn't actually provide service better, the previous slogan was, well, we serve you better. And I said, because you couldn't serve us better, now you say you are stuck to us. We are stuck to you, stuck to you for life. So no matter how rubbish you rubbish us, we are still stuck to you. And she was laughing. I said, yeah, yeah.
I will use myself as an example.
Excellent.
I see the Spanish in that case.
Yeah.
So one time I started to stay with one of the banks. I traveled a lot, so when they gave me a card, when I went outside, I couldn't get access to my money. But with Spanish and Barclays, wherever I go, I'm able to access my money. So
That's correct.
I don't want to.
That's correct. So the quality service, for example, and not quality service per se, but even accessibility issues. The fact that you can access the bank, and that's part of the quality service, so to speak. The fact that you can actually access the bank wherever you are, becomes a barrier, for you to leave. Well, we can say a barrier or not, but in a way, you're actually convinced that that's the best place you have to be. And that is the strength that perhaps GCB Bank could actually use if really they provide other services. Because accessibility and convenience perhaps could be one of their benchmarks. But there's one thing having the mortar in the place as accessibility. There's another thing going to the bank and really having access to your stuff in a very convenient and relaxed atmosphere. You get there and it takes forever. So the mortar is there in every corner of this country. There's GCB Bank. I hope they change their culture or attitude in this regard.
I don't think in some situations you might have locked up the relationship in connection with other facilities. Let's say you have a mortgage, you're paying through that bank, you have a loan facility, there are other things you run using that bank. So once you have that relationship, it becomes difficult for you to actually.
That's correct. Excellent. And in most Western countries, that's exactly that. Because you see, unlike ours where the economy is much more cash-based and everything else we pay, in most Western countries, it's actually electronic payment. So you have your direct debits from water to your child's school fees to everything else, even to your church dues and everything else, going through your bank. So you have almost about 10 transactions or more going through your bank every month. Imagine changing banks and then calling the new bank to say, oh, I have to give my direct debit details. Okay, electricity, and then you give them the account number. Water, how long is it going to take you? Some of them you even forget. Then you have transferred. And once it bounces, you're charged for having that transaction failed. You understand? So it's so difficult for people to exit, all right, a particular bank service. And even at the point of entry, like we said, they need address, they need this, they need this. Also becomes difficult. So usually, and like GCB said, we're stuck with them for life. You get there, then that's it, you can't go out.
To add to that, your relationship with the service provider can also keep you with the organization. But I happen to, I'm a customer of GCB. But anytime I get there, no matter how there is a long queue, I don't waste time. They provide service to me as soon as possible. So I think that is enough for me to remain with them. I remain with them because anytime I attend to them, they provide service.
That's great. And any of the banks, is there any of the branches or just one particular branch?
Yeah, most of the branches.
Excellent. You must be one of the lucky ones. I
was about to say mine was just
the opposite.
Excuse me, sir. I also think people still for bank because the services are not very different. When the institutions do not have very different services, there is no need to switch a bank. Because if you go here, the interest rates are the same.
I agree with you.
And almost everything is the same. So.
I agree. And that is exactly what is happening in the telcos. The portability is there. But the fears of having, what do they call it, the elections, during they said the value is the same. As the politicians say, oh, FDP and the value is the same. The fear of having the same kind of attitude across board. So the sector itself can't, it's sort of making people lock up. So you can imagine that if there must be a new sector that can actually, or if there have to be a new sector that can actually fulfill the same need, you will switch. And that's what happened to what? The mail sector, the post office. There was a massive change when the internet was upon us. All right. So even there is a problem or there is a tendency of sector relationship switch, where customers will switch from one sector to another. Because when the internet was upon us, and you don't have to wait for 10 days before you receive your love letter from someone in somewhere. You switch. So people started using their emails. You just say hi, the next time, just a few minutes, somebody's going to say hi back. Are you going to stick to the sector that takes 2 weeks for you to receive? I remember when we used to be in secondary schools. You write to a girl in another school and it takes forever before you receive it. So, yeah, we all experienced it, didn't we? Especially those who are in boarding houses. You know, you'll be waiting, the letter boy comes and they say, Charlie.
You started using the EMS along the line.
Hey, it's not using the EMS along the line. Charlie, wasn't it though? You'll be sleeping and you'll be waiting, thinking, Charlie, the letter there online, they come. You know. But these days, you don't have to do that. You just slot in your phone and you say, Charlie, what do you have on campus? The next few minutes, you get a response back. So you don't have to be daydreaming, you know, like we used to be. That's the thing. So there could be even industry lockup. The industry itself is not enough, it's not doing enough for relationship maintenance or, well, in the reverse, is actually benefits in the middle. It's actually fostering relationship lockups, you know, because of expectation that the value is the same. Yeah.
Sometimes I guess the retention tools people pay at some companies and banks put in place also helps to maintain the relationship.
Yeah.
In December, I had a letter, nice letter from UK office in my bank to me that will be a loyal customer for the past number of years and we appreciate your contribution. This is to say we recognize you. It was that good. It was a good feeling.
That's
but
right.
The office in UK said that, let me write to this
in Ghana.
In Ghana.
Awesome.
So I think he said some retention tools they also put in place also help people scale.
That's right. Good point.
To add what he just said, I think it depends on the level of the individual in terms of status to appreciate a letter from a company. Someone will say, I want maybe a fridge or a TV as a thank you. So I'm sure sometimes it also depends on whoever is at the receiving end.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. You see, and so that means that as a company, and from what we're saying, relationship is not actually some kind of a forced process. There has to be a kind of a reciprocal event. Is the customer ready to have relationship with? You know, or is the customer ready to be in a relationship? Somebody will say, my friend, I'm okay with the transactional things that we're doing. I'm cool with the character. So don't force yourself to spend so much resources to maintain that relationship, because some customer frankly see relationship as intrusion. Are you with me? Some see relationship as intrusion, especially with the kind of modern customer skeptic that we are. You know, with what they call the postmodernist or the postmodernist customer. The postmodernist customer doesn't want anything to do with relationship. Why? Because, and especially, you can see it from those who are activist perspective. Majority of consumer activists think that relationship actually makes companies to be corrupt, to be exploitative. Do you understand? So most people who have postmodernist tendencies don't want to have a relationship because they think that it gives you the opportunity to exploit society. Because you grow too fast in terms of the business, all right, in terms of profitability. They're giving you money every day, every day, every day. Your profitability becomes like this, and then you start misbehaving. Because you're so big in the society that you can take every decision that you want. You fail to become responsible to society, and you start paying your executives big salaries. And that's what's actually happening to the banks. All right, so there's a consumer backlash against relationship. Are you with me? Because they rather want to go and buy from the smaller business, like your business, is a parlor. Is a parlor. So they rather want to come to your parlor to make sure that you are doing well as an individual business than giving maybe that business to, let's say, what's some of the fashion companies like hair and all those companies? FC, and then what's the Chanel? What is it, Chanel? One of some of these beautician or beauty companies. Black and beauty or whatever. Assuming love it. Yeah. Love. You see, that tells me that we are not in tune with fashion. Dark and Lovely, yeah? Imagine Dark and Lovely has a parlor like you. A postmodernist doesn't want to deal with them because they think that they're empowering them. So they can buy from you once but they don't want to have that relationship because they think that it will make them too powerful to bully you out of business. Are you with me? So just like you said, there are individuals who don't want to have anything to do with relationship with businesses because they think that it makes them too powerful in society. Now let us contextualize this. If all these are some of the issues with relationship forming and exiting, what do you think as a business? For example, let's take the last one. The fact that people don't want to have anything to do with you because they think you'll be too powerful. What is the solution? To deal with postmodernist customers.
Well, I've been thinking about the experience, the level of quality, and professionalism. Because like you are saying, the postmodernists would not want to have anything to do with you after he's done doing his business.
So they agree, you're of quality, you're awesome, everything else, but just because they think that by giving their money every day to you, become too powerful in society, they don't want to do that. They want to equally quality someone, with a small business that can keep their livelihood solid in society. How do you counter that?
Here is the case. As a businesswoman, you must also give back to the society.
That's right.
Like the social responsibility.
That's right.
You must also give back so that it will tell the customers that no, you are not taking advantage of them by maybe bullying them, but you are also giving it back to the society.
That's right.
Trust you and always continue to stay with you so that the business can survive for a future.
That's right. So CSR has become a big part of strategy. You get it? And that's exactly the reason why companies will spend millions to do CSR. Because of the backlash against, conglomerates and against big businesses. Because people are now thinking that they're becoming too big. Now, companies of that nature now saying, we're not misbehaving. We are not being irresponsible. We are not saying that because you are a customer to us and agree with us, we have to do whatever we like. So companies are now starting certain processes to reassure consumers that they are still responsible as they were as a small business.
That is tending to become a form of PR from me, my perspective.
Okay.
Yes. For example, somebody would spend some few millions of cedis to buy computers for the community and then spend a lot more cedis with the media houses to advertise that this is what we are doing. Then it goes back to the same point that you are still trying to publicize yourself and not really doing what you're supposed to do.
That's the media man speaking. That's true. But you see, you can still find a way of handling it. You've got to appear genuine. There are some companies who do CSR projects that are to the core and they don't give it that massive publicity. So you've got to let a customer see the genuineness of the process, all right? See the genuineness of it. Some companies would rather want to send letters to their core relationship customer to say that in the past year, we've done X and Y, or they put it in their annual report and then let people actually, see it through themselves. See themselves that the company is actually, without having that, a glamorous, kind of approach to advertising to everybody, like the Pharisee, that we do with this. So you sort of have a way of toning down and making sure that people appreciate. And most companies are actually also offsetting their carbon, offsetting their carbon whatever emissions. So they pay into certain funds, and things like that. So these are some of the ways that you can actually combat that backlash of relationship or loyalty.
Some companies look at publicity as a
Yeah, agreed. But
depend on the dimension of the CSR that they put in.
yes, but the maximization of the profit actually is dependent on the number of people they can retain, and then a new client they can they can get out of those processes. So yes, the intention or the behind it may not necessarily be the fact that it's about profitability, but the process could not be distinguished or could not be actually far removed from the retention issues or that relationship Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, that's true. Disagree with what he said because every CI has
CSR.
Corporate social responsibility project. At the end of the day, will be to the benefit of the company. Because the bottom line is to create a good image for the company. And by that, we are trying to attract and retain the customers by painting an image in their head that you are a company that is not so much interested in profit, but you care about them. But the business will know that at the end of the day, there will be returns.
Yeah.
Whichever amount you would have spent on it.
Yeah. But then again, there's truth in what you're saying. Because some companies, and I'm sure you would agree with me, some companies actually look at CSR as a way of advertising. So they don't pay money to your business. You know, because they think that the media would always come to do it free of charge. So for me to go and pay X amount of money to Versa as an advertiser, they would want to say, oh, we are doing a community, you get it. Versa will come and what? Cover it big time. What have they done? They've cut down on their media budget. And that actually goes to reinforce profitability. So strictly speaking from that perspective, yes. You know, they would have profitability at the back of their mind, not necessarily retaining even customers. But by just doing that, they're cutting down what? The media spend. But then again, why do they advertise? Just to get people in, to sort of get clients or, you know, acquire some more customers, increase their market share. So it's sort of intertwined in, you know, whichever way that you look at it. All right, so we're saying that barriers to switching, all these actually leads to this, and then value relative to competition, of course, and then you have individual organizational characteristics. Like we said, if we have an individual being a postmodernist, that will actually impact on what? The kind of relationship that they want to have with you. And then we say that it leads to this, and then it leads to market share and profitability. All right. So again, framework for customer loyalty, and most of these we have discussed. So, I mean, when you look at the framework, they all come to that. Accessibility, we've talked about. Confidence, we've talked about. Feelings and all these things we've talked about. Now, let's look at here. Structural capital as relationship criteria. Most of the things that we have actually discussed, you know, falls under here. Organization success in tying to its structures, you know, the relationship. All right? And we say relationships that have been made with the company as an entity in addition to the parallel with the relationship with the employee. Now, the understanding is that when employee relation, I mean, we talked about individual, interpersonal relationship. Now, when you have established relationship with an employee of a company, the assumption is the person is actually representing the company anyway. So that relationship stays with the company. Now, at a point when that employee actually leaves the organization, you expect that there could be relationship loss. But sometimes it is actually what? Maintained. Despite the interpersonal relationship that existed between the customer and the person that represented what? The company. In most cases, we assume that the relationship is actually maintained. All right. And because of the factors that we just highlighted, the cost of exiting the relationship, or the cost of what? Entering another relationship. Another factor that we've discussed, some of it industry, structural and things. The assumption is that whenever there is some sort of relationship created between the company and the supplier or its stakeholders, it has to be structural capital. Because if it's not structural capital, or the company doesn't make the effort to tie the relationship, even between individuals, to the organization, you're going to suffer the consequence. Are you with me? So imagine that Makelesian leaves Chelsea and goes somewhere, and then they follow everybody else. When they do that, or if your company is just like that, Mourinho leaving Madrid and everybody following him to Chelsea. If your organization's relationship is in that form, you're going to suffer the consequences. Are you with me? like the salon that we talked about. If your stylist leaves the place, and then she goes out with all the customers, just like the churches as well. Well, one pastor leaves, and half of the church will be, hey, Charlie, pastor this, he's gone to this, and they follow. If the kind of relationship that you have in your business is like that, you will suffer the consequences. I wouldn't. So that's why we're saying that every type of relationship that is developed, that's formed in the company, has to have that structural, capital component. It has to actually be integrated into the business in a way that you don't suffer the consequences as a result of staff leaving. So how do you do that? We have interpersonal relations. We talked about people. How do you make sure that you tie into it? I'm sure most of them we have discussed anyway. But let's tease out more practical ways as a business. How would you operationalize?